Thanks for joining us on Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. This week, Nigeria's new ambassadors are inducted and prepare to head on to their various missions. We'll take another look at the economics of vaccines and the macroeconomic impact as richer nations are called on to help poorer nations acquire COVID-19 vaccines. We'll be talking to the Deputy Director at the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mrs. Margaret Ogundana. That's all coming up in a moment after a quick check on other discussions in diplomatic circles.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyema, has debunked rumors that the Republic of Benin is aspiring to be the 37th state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. Onyema addressed the rumor in a statement, saying that during a press interview with his Benin Republic counterpart, following fruitful meeting between ministerial delegations from both countries, stated the President of Benin Republic said he would like the relations between the two countries to be so close as if Benin was the 37th state of Nigeria. Mr. Onyema cleared misunderstandings about the issue by stating that the Federal Republic of Nigeria has no territorial ambition and has never aspired to make Benin or any country a part of Nigeria. Meanwhile, the Abudu family has petitioned the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission over the killing of 40-year-old Adedayo Temitope by yet-to-be-identified assailants in Johannesburg, South Africa. The petition was brought by brother to the deceased, Mr. Olatunde Mustafa Abudu. He narrated how his brother, who lived on Delvers Street, was gunned down on January 5, 2021. He still does not know why his brother was targeted. He claimed his brother was a law-abiding citizen going about his lawful business in the country and had no criminal record either in South Africa or in Nigeria. NIDCOM Chairman and CEO Mrs. Abike Dabiri Erewa, who directed the Commission's legal department to take up the matter, received his petition. The UN nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, says it has struck a deal with Iran to cushion the blow of steps Iran plans to take this week that include snap inspections, with both sides agreeing to keep necessary monitoring for up to 3 months. The announcement came from IAEA Director General Rafael Grosny in Vienna after a weekend trip to Iran, confirming that Tehran would go ahead with its plan to slash cooperation with the agency this week.
In view of the law, and in particular the provision that establishes limitations, we reached a temporary bilateral technical understanding whereby the agency is going to continue its necessary verification and monitoring activities for a period of up to 3 months.
Iran has been gradually breaching terms of a 2015 nuclear pact with world leaders since the United States, under former President Donald Trump, withdrew in 2018 and reimposed sanctions. The pact aims to keep Iran at arm's length from being able to make nuclear arms, which Tehran says it has never wanted to build.
Italy's ambassador to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Luca Attanasio, has been killed in an attack north of the city of Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The incident happened at 10:15 local time today, and it's still not clear who was behind the attack, but armed groups are known to operate in and around the Virunga National Park where it occurred. The 43-year-old had been traveling in a UN convoy when it came under fire. The government, on the other hand, believes the attack was an attempted kidnapping. Ambassador Attanasio's body is believed to have been taken to a field hospital in Goma. He was not the only one killed. So was 30-year-old Italian military policeman Vittorio Lacovacci and a Congolese driver whose name has not been released, but all three have been confirmed dead by the Italian government. Italy's Foreign Minister Luigi Di Maio has expressed great dismay and immense sorrow at the killing, saying no effort will be spared to shed light on what happened. Militia also clash regularly in the east of the country, where a large UN force is struggling to keep the peace. Mr. Attanasio had represented Italy in the DR Congo since 2017. He joined the diplomatic service in 2003 and spent time in Morocco and Nigeria. In another development, the United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned that white supremacy and neo-Nazi movements are becoming a transnational threat and have exploited the coronavirus pandemic to boost their support. He was addressing the UN Human Rights Council, where he also revealed the danger of hate-driven groups is growing daily. Guterres also accused authorities in some countries of using the COVID-19 pandemic to deploy heavy-handed security responses and emergency measures to crush dissent.
We must also step up the fight against resurgent neo-Nazism, white supremacy, and racially and ethnically motivated terrorism. The danger of these hate-driven movements is growing by the day. Let us call them what they are. White supremacy and neo-Nazi movements are more than domestic terror threats. They are becoming a transnational threat. These and other groups have exploited the pandemic to boost their ranks through social polarization and political and cultural manipulation.
Welcome back. Nigeria's newly appointed 96 ambassadors, 8 consuls general, and 5 chargés d'affaires were inducted on Tuesday, February 16th, at the Muhammadu Buhari Conference Center within the premises of the National Intelligence Agency, Abuja. It was an occasion not only to commend the new envoys for accepting to serve the nation in this regard, but to charge them to be good representatives of the nation at their primary assignment. Donning their face masks and observing social distancing, the ambassadors, consuls general, and chargés d'affaires inductees filled the hall inside the Muhammadu Buhari Conference Center in Abuja. For many of them in this hall, this will be their first run at international service, as their new appointments would take them across the globe. All 43 of them carrier ambassadors and 53 other political ambassadors. Their appointment follows the approval of the envoys by President Muhammadu Buhari. The president joined the ceremony virtually to give his charge to the inductees.
You must strive to promote trade, human capacity development, foreign direct investment, and other areas of cooperation with countries at national and multilateral levels.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyema, who was present at the ceremony, reminded them the induction was to familiarize the envoys with the terrain of representational duties of what might be considered one of the highest echelons of national assignment. He expressed his confidence that the individuals, combining their wealth of experience and knowledge gained from the program, would set them on course towards fulfillment of their responsibilities in the projection of Nigeria's foreign policy in their respective countries of accreditation. He also cautioned them on the importance of soft power diplomacy through the Technical Aid Corps and the Directorate of Technical Aid Corps.
The result of the Buhari doctrine is that Nigeria is on good terms with every country in the world. No exception.
The inductees shared their thoughts on the task ahead of them.
I haven't seen sufficient collaboration and synergy between Nigeria and Spain, and really that's one thing we have to work upon. The activity of Nigerian-Spanish Chamber of Commerce, the resuscitation of a Nigerian-Spanish Business Council, possibly a Nigerian-Spanish International School, and to ensure that airline like Iberia is coming back to Nigeria. Because gone are those days when all of us were much younger. You can see Iberia, Sabina, all of them coming to Nigeria. But all of a sudden they all disappeared. So we don't have to allow them to be disconnected with our country.
Most envoys have a tenure of 3 years, within which they are to ensure cordial cooperation between their home countries and host countries, as well as ensuring the safety and well-being of Nigerians in their host countries. And according to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Nigeria is on good terms with every country in the world, with no exception. Meanwhile, as the COVID-19 pandemic rages on and the race for acquiring vaccines takes center stage, concern is growing about the fate of poorer nations who have not been able to acquire vaccines and how much more begin vaccination campaigns. Global leaders are now calling on richer nations to do their part in ensuring poorer nations do not have to wait too long before they begin to inoculate their populations.
A recent report by Iran says the global cost of not having a COVID-19 vaccine is around $3.4 trillion a year, but that with a COVID-19 vaccine, unequal allocation among developed and developing countries could cost the global economy up to $1.2 trillion a year. High-income countries are said to be currently holding over 4.2 billion doses, while low-middle-income nations have only 700 million doses, a situation which signals the global vaccine inequality may persist for a little longer. Last week, French President Emmanuel Macron said Europe and the US should urgently allocate up to 5% of their recent vaccine supplies to developing countries where COVID-19 vaccination campaigns have scarcely begun and China and Russia are offering to fill the gap. He said African nations were sometimes buying Western vaccines, such as those made by AstraZeneca, at astronomical prices, usually 2 or 3 times the price paid by the EU, and being offered Chinese and Russian vaccines of uncertain efficacy against new variants of the virus. France says the pricing is evidently a problem of sales by intermediaries and might equally affect the vaccines of other drug companies. President Macron says setting aside a percentage of vaccines will not change nations' vaccination campaign, but that the plan would be a test of the reality of multilateralism. He is hoping to convince the US, where vaccine supplies are more plentiful than in the EU, to hop on the plan. Following his lead, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced the UK will donate surplus coronavirus vaccines to developing countries. According to the Prime Minister's office, the majority of any future UK surplus coronavirus vaccines will be shared with the World Health Organization-backed COVAX program. This will be in addition to the UK's £548 million the country has already donated to the program, aimed at supplying some of the world's poorest nations with inoculations. On Friday, leaders of the Group of 7 economic powers, who control a little under half of the world's economy, agreed to intensify cooperation in response to the coronavirus pandemic and increase funding commitment for the rollout of vaccines in the world's poorest countries to $7.5 billion. Many leaders, however, under pressure over their vaccination campaigns at home, were unwilling to say exactly how much vaccine they were willing to share with the developing world or when.
The present situation remains chaotic. Of course, we see some good signals. We see now the US supporting COVAX. We see several countries announcing that they will share their excess vaccines. But 75% of the doses distributed until now were only in 10 countries, and more than 100 countries have not yet received any single dose.
The French president, who was at the meeting, noted that Africa has 6.5 million health workers and requires 13 million doses to protect them and allow their health systems to withstand the coronavirus crisis. He said this would represent just over 0.43% of the West's vaccine stocks, but be a boon to African countries struggling to protect their citizens. He has also warned that if rich countries promise doses that do not arrive for another 6 to 12 months, African friends would be pressured by their populations, and rightly so, to buy doses from the Chinese, the Russians, or directly from laboratories.
The risk is, if we vaccinate only the developed countries and we let the virus spread in the developing world, the virus will mutate. Mutating will be more dangerous, but also more able to resist vaccines, and it might come back to haunt the developed world that has thought to protect their people, but then will not be able, with the vaccines of the past, to answer with the new variants of the virus.
Since this all boils down to vaccine nationalism and the multi-country macroeconomic impact it could have, I want to bring in Deputy Director at the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mrs. Margaret Ogundono. She joins us now from Lekki, Lagos. Mrs. Ogundono, thank you for joining us on Diplomatic Channel.
Good evening, Amarachi. How are you today?
I'm good. And you?
Fine, thank you. And thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here. So now, according to the RAND report, all countries will benefit economically if the world's poorest nations have equal access to any COVID-19 vaccines developed. And high-income countries would get back about $4.8 dollars for every $1 spent on supplying vaccines. What do you make of this?
I think there's some macroeconomic fundamentals, like rightly mentioned, that we have to consider. When you talk about the rich countries and the poor countries, I want to assume that if it is expected that if they are able to invest 4.8 naira, dollar rather, and hoping to get what I would like to call return on that sort of investment of $1 each, I think is unrealistic. Why I'm saying is unrealistic is that that assumption says it is all things being equal, and we know that there's a pandemic regime. I don't expect that any rich nation will invest that kind of money and expect that kind of return on its investment. We're talking of pandemic here where people are dying. I think it may not be business as usual. It may not be what they are expecting. I think there's more of humanity involved in them investing in those vaccines and making it available to the generality the world over, because the pandemic is global.
Yeah, and this is a scenario that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the new Director General for the World Trade Organization, is the scenario she was painting a few days ago when she warned that a phenomenon where rich countries are vaccinating their populations and poor countries have to wait has to be avoided. How then do you think developing countries like Nigeria, for example, can help fund the procurement of vaccines?
Nigeria is classified as a less developed nation. And be that as it may, is one of the largest, or in fact, is the largest in the continent of Africa. So which means it's a force to be reckoned with. Now, from what Dr. Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala said, I want to assume that that narrative sends it to the rich nations that it can be they can't take that decision without giving consideration to the fact that these poorer nations apparently contains the market. And I want to paint it from the economic perspective. The richer nations should assume that we have a relationship which I want to consider as being symbiotic. Symbiotic in the sense that they need us, we need them. And that is why Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala said that rich nations should consider not just whatever investment they may want to have with respect to producing the vaccines for the poorer nations. They have to mellow it down. And mellowing it down means it won't be just everything about investing and wanting to make money. And now to come to Nigeria as the largest nation, Nigeria, because of its population of about 200 million people, and with the fact that it also has a standing task force on this COVID pandemic thing, shows that it's very serious about it, and it will be able to afford, whatever it will cost it to procure those vaccines for the benefit and the medical welfare of its citizens.
Then how effective do you think the COVAX finance public-private facility, given its stated targets to mission to expedite early availability of vaccines, is to lower income countries?
Yes, that COVAX is a global initiative, and it is aimed at ensuring equal access to the vaccines. And that COVAX is led by this organization called Gavi. That is the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization. And it also has on board the WHO, and it also has the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, that is CEPI and others. It's a coalition of about 145 members. And what they decided, well, among others, was that the vaccine to be produced by the alliance between Oxford and the AstraZeneca, which will be about 12 million doses, should be available to all its members. And what they also planned is that by the time those 12 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccines are available, at least those of the medical personnel on the front line, they should be given priority to be immune against this COVID pandemic, because they are the ones taking care of other people. And at least at the end of the first quarter of 2021, it is also expected that at least 3% of the population of those 145 member nations, shall I say, should have been vaccinated at least by the first quarter of 2021. So it shows the seriousness with which COVAX has taken on this initiative to ensure that at least the COVID pandemic is mellowed down. And as you can see, I think they are making progress, because the euphoria reduced a little bit, because they've been able to ensure that the death streaks due to the COVID pandemic has realigned a little bit downwards, shall I say.
About 75% of global vaccines have already been procured by developed countries. If we do manage to procure the vaccines needed for the continents, then there is an issue of proper storage and efficient distribution across the country. What logistical plan then needs to be in place to impact efficient management of these vaccines?
Let me take us back to the same anxiety which was expressed when the issue of polio came on board. And then part of the concerns was that if they were able to get those vaccines for the polio, how are they going to store it? But given the fact that this one is even worse than polio because it's global, and I've been trying to follow up on the activities of the task force, they have been trying to make necessary infrastructures available to ensure that when those vaccines are available, they are properly, in terms of logistics, they are available, and they've expanded the storage facilities all over the Federation, because I listen to their activities through the media on a daily basis. So I don't have any, we shouldn't express any apprehension with respect to the capacity of the government in ensuring that if those vaccines are available, there will be adequate storage, and there will be adequate infrastructures, especially electricity, to protect and make those things available to wherever they are required, through the hospitals and and all those places. And in addition to that, the government of Nigeria, in partnership with many private organizations, have been able to be proactive, shall I say. Many of those private sectors set up isolation centers to assist and support the government initiative with respect to taking care of the patients who are afflicted by this COVID. And some of them even went to the extent of even procuring the vaccines. And I think with that, with the infrastructures available and the proactive step taken by the government, I think we should encourage them further by motivating them with our words. I think they are really doing the best. And I don't have any apprehension. We shouldn't have any apprehension with respect to us getting the vaccines and storing it as up for eventual distribution to all those hospitals and those isolation centers.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ogunana, for speaking with us. A pleasure having you on Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is where we end the program this week. I hope you had as much pleasure watching. You can reach me using any of the addresses showing on your screen. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.